Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Krafty Kristina Knitting Podcast. I am Kristina. I am Krafty. I am your host. And if you are new, this is a podcast all about my knitting and crafting adventures, mostly knitting. Today is March 10th, 2023. It is about noon, 12:01 to be exact. It's a Friday. I am taking some PTO, well-deserved, from my 9-to-5 non-knitting job today. And I was looking at my projects and I realized it's been a while since I've podcasted, maybe 6 weeks since I've uploaded an episode, and I have a lot of stuff to share. So I thought I would get together today and show you all the things that I've been working on, and also I've got some stash buster blanket pattern ideas that I'll talk about towards the end. And then to wrap up today's video, we're actually going to do a Q&A because we've had a lot of new people join over the last couple of months, and I got a lot of questions over Vlogmas and even in the first few months of the year. So I thought I would take this time today after my formal episode to add in a Q&A at the end. So I asked for your questions on YouTube and on Instagram, and I even went back through my comments and past videos, and I've made sort of an FAQ list and some fun questions that we're going to answer so you can get to know me a little bit more if you're new. And I think even if you're not new, you're going to learn some more stuff about me. So come on in. I've got some coffee that is almost finished, so I'm going to finish it while we chat today. But get your projects, get a snack, whatever you need, and get settled in. Get settled in. Get settled in, and let's catch up and let's talk knits. Guys, welcome back. How are you? Things have been kind of crazy busy over here in the land of Krafty Kristina. I mentioned that I'm taking some PTO. I had a huge event last weekend and it went swimmingly, but I had been working a lot of overtime. If you watched my last What I Knit in a Week video, I will link it. If you missed it, you should totally check it out because I did a very realistic how I actually sneak stitches in during my 9-to-5 workday. Because if you're like me, you have that type of job too, and even though you wish you could knit for a living, you can't. So I talked about how I was doing that, especially in the very stressful few weeks before an event, and I actually have a lot to share. So I don't know. I guess my method is working. Anyway, I don't even know. I'm so excited to be talking. I feel like I'm kind of rambling. I have a wild list here to talk about today. And I also realized that I owe you 2 months of, I'm getting a formal invitation to St. Patrick's Day dinner from Zach's grandpa right now. Anyway. St. Patty's dinner. They're Irish and so am I, so they love celebrating. Okay, where was I? Oh, I realized I have 2 months of stash updates to share. So we're going to share some stash. You can see it's still really full over here, but I've made some progress. I don't know. We're going to cover kind of a lot today. I've got a lot of projects to show. So I'm going to start at the top with some finished objects from the last time you saw me. So in the last episode 12, this is episode 13. In the last episode, I was talking about how one of my goals for this year was to knit down my cotton yarn stash and to knit a bunch of dishcloths because I like them. My family likes them. I think I even have a couple of friends that I've gifted them to that really like them. And I've just got a bunch of yarn, and I find they're really potato chippy for me, and I go through these moments where I'll like knit a couple or a few, and then I'm like, wow, I got my dishcloths fix, and I'm kind of over it, and then a couple months will pass, and I'll do it again. And so I went through one of those stages. So I think when you saw me last, I had one of these finished, and this is just like random Lily's sugar and cream I purchased Like, I think knitting dishcloths is, I don't know why I did it or how I ever started, but it was one of the first things I learned how to knit. And I knit some for my mom, and then I just, like, there's so many colors and, like, cotton yarns to pick from, so I have just accumulated a bunch and never knit it down. So anyway, so I had one of these finished when you last saw me, I think, and I was halfway through a second white dishcloth. Again, Lily's Sugar and Cream. I used the pattern. You want to know what? I'm going to link my Ravelry down below so you can go and look. I've been making an effort to keep all of my projects and my notes up to date in there. I find when I'm looking for projects that I love when people are so detailed in the notes that they take. So I'm making it a priority to do that for my stuff. There will be notes on, like, this pattern. I made one project page for my dishcloths, actually, and I'm just keeping it open until I finish my stash and just see how many I can knit from what I've got, from the yarn that I've got, if that makes sense. Anyway, the pattern I can't remember, but in my 2023 knitting plans video, I think I said it was like grandmother's second favorite dishcloth, but that was not the pattern I actually use. And I'm blanking on the name of my pattern, but it is on my Ravelry, so I'll link it below for you to go check out. I don't like the holes. I've tried the holes versions, and I end up going with the no holes versions, and I like this pattern. So the actual pattern that I use is the product page that you'll see in Ravelry. So I finished mostly. I guess I didn't weave in these ends, did I? I finished this in January, and then these two I think are new to you. So I finished a ball. I actually think I have a little bit of this white left, so I might just have to knit a bunch of scrappy, like, striped dishcloths or something. I don't really know. I'll cross that bridge when I get there, but I can make 2 full dishcloths from the pattern that I used and have a little bit left over per Lily's Sugar and Cream ball. And then I cast on a blue one. Obviously I didn't weave in my ends, which I didn't realize, but I cast on a blue one and I finished knitting that. But then I kind of got over it. So I still have this much left. And I have a scale sitting here, but I don't know how accurately it chose to sit on the floor today. I don't know how accurately it's, okay, it looks accurate. Looks like I have 10 grams left for this. And this dishcloth took, why does that not feel right? 3 grams for this, and there's 10 grams left for this? That doesn't seem right. Wait a minute. It's off. The scale is off. I have a 5 gram ball. And this dishcloth is 5 grams. See, I don't think this is right. I'm going to weigh these ones now. Six grams. I don't know. Maybe that's accurate. I don't know how much yarn I have left, but it looks like it took like 6 grams for each one of these dishcloths. So I finished those. Sorry, I'm all over the place. And then the other thing that I finished, and don't judge because they're looking a little crusty because I need to wash them. I've been wearing them, are my first pair of Broadway socks. So one of my goals for this year is to knit through 12 skeins of my monthly Broadway Club yarn and knit myself 12 pairs of socks. I do a monthly subscription through Trilogy Yarns. She has a Broadway yarn club. She dyes yarn every month based on the playbill for a Broadway musical. I just remembered I forgot to get something to show. I'm going to have to take a break and come back for that. Anyway, I've been subscribing to that. I waited a full 12 months before deciding what I would do with them because I wasn't sure if there was a correlation in the musicals that she was dyeing. I wasn't sure if the dye styles were going to correlate in any way or if they were going to be really just standalone projects. Standalone skeins of yarn. And I think they all really could stand alone, but I also think some will work well together. But what I've basically decided is that I want to knit a pair of socks for myself every month from a Broadway club. And then I want to use the scraps for something else, probably a blanket. And so my January pair of socks was this. And this is Trilogy Yarns plush base. It is an MCN 4-ply fingering, which I think I've realized I really love a 4-ply sock yarn. I don't know if that's normal, but I think that's the blend I found that I've liked. It feels plumper to me. I don't know. Anyway, 80% superwash merino, 10% cashmere, 10% nylon, 450 yards per 100 grams, and it is in the colorway A Christmas Story. So there's that label for you. Plush base. This is a really yummy base. And typically I was doing a sock for myself, cast on 64, knitting 20 rounds for the cuff, 50 rounds for the leg. I do a slip stitch, heel flap, and gusset. And after the gusset decreases, I actually decreased to 60 because my foot is a little smaller than my ankle. And I knit about 50 rounds before doing the rounded toe. So that's my usual recipe. I decided on this pair of socks that I would do 25 rounds of knit 2 purl 2 ribbing. And I actually found I think I like that better. So I'm doing a little bit longer of a cuff. I like the way it looks. I think it holds on my sock a little better actually. So that's what I did for this. And I'm going to continue to do that forward. So that was my January sock. And I have this much yarn left over. So I told you, I brought my scale here because I really wanted to weigh this yarn to tell you how much I had left. This is definitely not right. It's telling me this is 11 grams. No way. It is not 11 grams. 44 grams. I have 44 grams left. So that's quite a lot. I could probably knit another pair of socks if I want, but I'm going to keep this aside and I'll talk about this after I talk about the rest of my projects, but my plans for the scraps for this. I think those are my finished objects. So 2 dishcloths and a pair of socks. Talk about whips. Oh my gosh, I left a whip downstairs. I'm going to have to take a break. I'm going to grab something out of my car actually, and I'm going to grab my habitation throw and I will come back. Okay, my position might be a little different. I actually had to run out of the house for something really quick. I'm back. Okay, where were we? Whips. Okay, that's what made me remember I forgot something downstairs and also in my car. So let's start with whips. My current whips. I actually have a couple of new cast-ons. I got something out of hibernation to work on, but I'm going to start with my habitation throw. So let me see. Okay. So I'm going to be honest. I kind of ebb and flow with how much I work on this throw. I always find like when I work on it, I'm super excited to get the next colored stripe in, and then I get a little bored, and then I pick it back up and I'm excited again, and then I get a little bored. Anyhow, here's where my throw is at currently. And the last time you saw me, I decided I was going to put a marker on. So when you saw me last, I was here. And so I've put this much on since then. This is the habitation throw pattern by Helen Stewart. And I am using the advent calendar that I got from Blush Yarns in, what year is this? In 2021. I initially had planned to do a northeasterly blanket with this by alternating bare yarn with, this is just Knit Picks Felici, I think. And I was looking to see if I had an extra skein in my stash to grab, but I don't. And I'm just alternating between the bare and a mini and a bare and a mini. I planned to do the northeasterly blanket like that. It was too slow going. It was going to take me way too long. I was kind of getting annoyed with it. And I don't know. I just decided I'd rather do something else. So A lot of my friends have a lot of my friends have knit the habitation throw or are currently knitting another habitation throw. A bunch of the ladies that I know at the local yarn store near me are also working on habitation throws. So I was influenced and decided to keep that same concept with this project that I initially had with the Northeasterly blanket, just to a different pattern. So this is where I'm at. I was using the magic knot ball to tie my knots and transition colors, but I noticed that some of them, which I've never had happen before, but it's not really that big of a deal, I just kind of retied them. Some came undone. I maybe think it's just like this yarn is just so soft. I don't really know. One of my friends told me that they were using something, I meant to go get it at like Michael's, called Liquid Stitch. And that had helped her magic knot stay in place. So I think I'm going to get that and just kind of see how that goes. And if it works for me, I'll talk about it in another episode. But I mean, this is where I'm at. So my plan for this throw, I think that it's written. I've talked about this before, but I'm going to reiterate. I'm going to remind you. This throw pattern, I think, was written for advent calendars or to use up minis. And the idea is that you just cast on and you knit until your mini's gone, and then you add the next one until you have a certain number of stitches, and then you start the decreases, and then you decrease until you're out of stitches, basically. Like a big type rectangle square sort of thing. Does that make sense? I think that's how it's written. In the projects that I looked at on Ravelry, I saw a project in particular that I really loved because the person who knit it, she decided that she wanted to do a mirroring effect with her yarn minis. And so what she did was she split her minis into two, and she made two giant balls, and she knit until she ran out of yarn. Then she did the decreases, and it mirrored the effect. So all of her colors are on both sides of her blanket, making it symmetrical. I really like that idea, but I wanted to do that, but also with the alternating bear and color stripes. So what I chose to do was cast on and knit through the first repeat of the pattern with bear, and I am knitting 10 rounds with my color and then switching back to bear. So I'm going to be doing that, doubling the amount of stripes that there are supposed to be, I think. And then I'm going to decrease and do the exact same thing. So it'll look the exact same on both sides, mirrored. You'll see each color twice. But I have no idea how big this blanket is going to be, truly. Like, I think it's going to be monstrous. But I'm okay with that because I love a big throw blanket that you can cozy up with on the couch, share with somebody. But I'm going to do the same thing here that I did the last time. So I put that marker in. I'm going to move my marker right now up to the row that I'm on now. So that way we can track my progress together next episode. If I pick it up again, because honestly, I worked on this a couple times and I haven't touched it since. So that is this project, my habitation throw. I have it in this just plastic bin with all of my minis, and I'm winding as I go. So I've talked about my habitation throw whips, just one singular whip. Let's see, what do I have next? Let me talk about my hat because I think that's the only other thing that you will have seen, and then I'll talk about some new stuff and a project out of hibernation. So I've been working on the Musselburgh hat by Isolde Teague. I'm knitting this for myself. I have lost the tag. I was trying to do better at keeping the tags to show you about the yarn. This skein is a fingering weight yarn. It's a 75-25 superwash merino nylon blend, and the colorway is called Brainstorm. And this like tealy color and like the green, yellow, pinky, like I just really liked the way it looked. And I decided I wanted to knit myself a hat out of this. Even though I'm not really a hat person, I want to make an effort to knit myself some things to wear during cold weather months, because I don't like the cold and I want to find ways to find more joy in the climate that I'm living in, because to be completely frank, I do not like it. I still hate it. I thought I had changed my mind when we relocated back here a couple of years ago. It is not. I think I was a plant in a past life. I love the sunshine. I like to be outdoors. I like the warmth. As much as I like being cozy and inside, I'm a sunshine lover. I'm a warm lover, and I really struggle in the winter time. So I'm making an effort to knit myself things that will make me feel better and keep me warmer when it's colder. And also, I want to create a goal this year to make my winter month knitting. We are technically still in a winter month, but in like the off summer and like spring months when I can spend more time outside, I want to make an effort to pick projects that are intentional and make me feel really good during those times, so that I can find more joy in areas that right now I'm not finding as much joy in. Does that make sense? Anyway, so I'm knitting myself a hat. This hat, I think I'm knitting on a size 3 needle. I have, let me see, where's my marker from the last time? The last time you saw me, I was here. So I've done quite a bit. I talked about being a little productive and sneaking in stitches during my workday. I work in a meeting heavy environment, and so if I can knit off camera, I try to do that. I'm obviously paying attention. I'm engaged in my meetings and like in the work that I'm doing, but if I can get away with sneaking in some stitches and actively participate, or if I have a camera off meeting, I am doing that. And this was my project because it's so mindless. So I was working on that in strictly meetings only, but I've actually, which most of this has been done in strictly meetings, and I started this like the first week of January, I think. But I guess I was hoping I'd have it done sooner so I could wear it while it was still cold, but we're approaching like mid-March, and I don't really know if I'm going to have any chances to wear it this year. It's fine, but I really am itching to get this off the needles so I can start cruising through more sock whips. So I've started knitting this a little bit more anytime I feel like it. So this is still my meeting project. I love the way this yarn is working up. I think it's so pretty. I don't know if I mentioned I'm knitting the size medium for myself. I was in between, my head measurement is in between the size adult small and adult medium, but I knit my boyfriend a hat for Christmas, and I knit his in the size medium, and I tried it on and I really liked the fit, so that's the size I'm going to knit for myself. So I think I have maybe 6 inches left to knit stockinette in the round before doing the decreases. So I'm very close to finishing. I think this should be finished the next time you see me. But I'm really enjoying it. It's a really nice project to take along, to knit in all occasions. It's pretty mindless. And I'm going to have a warm hat for myself next winter. So I'm looking forward to that. Okay, let me get a sip of coffee here and regroup. Now I'm going to talk about the project I took out of hibernation. And then the next 2 will be new cast-ons, but they're whips now too, obviously. So this project is a sock that I am knitting for my friend Melanie. Did I talk about this last time? I don't even know. I don't think I had this in my last podcast episode. My friend Melanie lives in Las Vegas. Her mom's a knitter, and I don't even have the best things to say about her. I want to be her when I grow up. I tell her this all the time, but she was so kind. She asked me if I would consider knitting her socks, if she sent me the yarn, and she was like, there's no deadline on this, whenever you get to it. And she sent this yarn to me well over a year ago now. And She sent me 3 skeins to choose from, told me I could keep the rest, but I really want to knit her a pair of socks in all 3 of the colors. So I'm starting with a pair that I think will fit her. So I'm going to mail these to her when they're finished and see the fit, and then I'll knit her more socks in the future based on how she thinks these fit, and then ideally I'll get like her perfect fit, and then I'll have a recipe for her too. I think we have similar size foot though, so I'm going to knit the same recipe for her foot that I do for mine right now. And the yarn that she sent me was Sweet Georgia yarns, and so I'm working on this sock. The colorway that I have first on the needles is Cash Luxe Fine is the base. It is 70% superwash merino wool, 20% cashmere, and 10% nylon. It is 420 yards per 115 grams. And the colorway is called Fauna. So there is that tag. It's a little wonky. My hair is shedding. It's like everywhere. Anyway, this is the yarn. I started knitting these socks for her actually in the fall when I did my Pomodoro Knit With Me video. And I really love this base. I think this color is just so yummy. Here's what it looks like caked up. And I'm just casually working on this for her. I'm about through. When I picked it up before, I was at this. So I showed this in What I Knit in a Week. And now I'm almost completely through the gusset decreases, and I'm going to cruise on the foot. So I don't know. I'm not really putting pressure on myself to finish them, but I'd like to get it to her sooner rather than later. Initially, I thought I'd be able to send it to her for Christmas. And then I ran out of time and wasn't focusing on it and was focusing on other things and Vlogmas, and you know how the holidays are. And then I then had a goal that I would maybe get it done for her birthday in mid-January, but I didn't get to it again. So I know she said no pressure whenever you can get to it. And so I don't know, I'm just knitting them for her. They'll be finished eventually, but it's an easy, like, I don't know, extra small project to bring along. So I've been working on that, and I brought that out of hibernation. So that is one sock whip that I have. The others are 2 new ones as well, and back to the Broadway socks. So this was my first pair of Broadway yarn socks, and my February pair has now also become my March pair because I'm not even halfway through the first sock. But the colorway, this is the colorway for my second pair of Broadway socks. It is the same base as before. Whoops. It's the Trilogy Yarns plush base, and the colorway is Miss Saigon. And this is what it looks like. So this is, again, another new cast on for me. Ideally, I'd love to have this done at the end of the month. I was using it during my Pomodoro breaks for a little bit. I also picked this up during some of my Pomodoro breaks. So I don't really know. I don't really have a structure for some of the stuff that I'm knitting right now. But I kind of have a feeling a lot of my projects right now, because I've just been so slowly working on them, it's like I have finished some things, but I have a feeling I've gotten myself to a place where, because I've been so scheduled with when I'm working on what projects in the last couple of months, they're all going to be finished all at the same time. And then I'm going to be able to cast on a bazillion other things. So I don't really know how I feel about that. I feel a little more inspired and accomplished when I'm finishing more stuff. So I think that's why I've decided to kind of focus a little bit more on that Musselburgh hat. I think I could probably finish it before I go back to work next Wednesday. I'm off. It's Friday. I'm off until Wednesday. So I have a pretty long weekend. Lots of opportunities to knit and things. So I think that's what I want to get off my needles next. And then I'll have a sock project for meetings, and I'll have a separate sock project for Pomodoro knitting, and I think that's going to help me catch up on my sock goals for the year. I don't know, maybe get ahead of them, but that's my other sock. And I just really like this. It's super fun. And then the final project that I have, let me think about this. The final project that I have is another project that was on my what I want to knit in 2023 list for my stash, and I cast on the Trunk Island Tank. Is that what it's called? Trunk Island Tank? I think that's right. The Trunk Island Tank by Beth McDonald Stone. And I cast it on with this yarn I got on the Steel City Yarn Crawl 2 years ago. The pattern was actually a sample that was knit up in the yarn that I bought, and they said that if you got a DK weight skein, you'd be able to knit up to a size 2 of this pattern in it, and I thought it was cute, and that was my plan. And so this is Flower Hill Fleeces, her base merino DK, hand dyed in the colorway Aquagini 2.0. It is 100% superwash merino, 274 yards per 100 grams. And this is the yarn. It's a very like tealy blue. It's washing out a little bit. It's rainy here today, so I usually try to rely on natural light, and I've got my ring light on today to try and help because I'm like pitch black right now in the room I'm sitting in. Anyway, so this is kind of where it's gonna be a little hard to show. This is where I'm at with it. It's knit bottom up. So according to the pattern and according to my bust measurements, I had planned to knit the size 2. And I did something I've never done before, and I didn't knit a gauge swatch. And I just started knitting. I was reading the project pages. There were some people that started knitting because it is bottom up. It's really mindless. There's little markers for the beginning of the round and then halfway through the round where you do a little detail that kind of looks like a seam. I don't know. This is kind of hard to show. It looks like it'll look like a seam, I think, once it's blocked and on, but like this is what it looks like on the inside. Do you see what I mean? So there's a teeny detail there. It's knit bottom up. And then you'll knit like the V-neck straps flat. And to be honest, I'm a little bit nervous about this. I feel like it's going to be too big. I checked my gauge. That's where I was going. So the project pages I had looked at, there were some people that had noted that they didn't do a gauge swatch because it's just stockinette in the round. And after they started going and were able to measure their gauge, they just switched needle sizes. And that kind of corrected their gauge problem. And it wasn't noticeable in the end product. I have found for me, my gauge has continued to stay pretty accurate across the board over the last couple of years when I have done a gauge swatch. So that was why I opted not to do one this time. My row gauge is correct, but my stitch gauge is supposed to be 3 stitches per inch, and it's post blocking. And I'm currently pre-blocking getting 5 stitches per inch, like wide. Does that make sense? I think that's correct. So anyway, I'm a little nervous about that because I feel like it's going to be humongous. I might be wrong. Like there's supposed to definitely be like some room, you know, it's supposed to be a flowy type top. I mean, I guess I'm looking at myself now. Like, it looks like it's going to be like a pretty nice fit here. I feel like when I wash it and block it, it's going to grow, right? So it's going to give me that 3 stitches probably per inch rather than the 5. Wouldn't you think? I don't know. Can you help me? I've made a silly choice. Anyway, so that's where I'm at with this. I am getting nervous though that I'm going to run out of yarn because I'm about halfway through my skein, and I don't know. I'm about halfway through my skein, and I am not that close I am under halfway to where I'm going to be when I need to knit the V-neck like bust and straps. And I can't imagine that will take too much yarn. But I'll see if I can like I think I'm going to put some pictures over here this time. So I'll try to put a picture over here so you can see what it looks like. And then, I don't know, I guess give me your advice. Worst case scenario, I guess I could frog it back and knit the smaller size. I just don't know. So really, I cast this on and I was really cruising through it. And then once I measured my gauge and like got nervous, I haven't done anymore. So I'm kind of just at a standstill with it. I just don't know. Let me know your thoughts. I'm just a girl who's figuring it out, okay? I'm no knitting expert. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I'm just trying to have fun. I want a cute tank top to wear, you know? And I feel like this color is going to look really cute on me. Anyhow, okay. That's this project. Let me know your thoughts. What do I do? Do I just keep going and then figure it out? Do I knit a size down? I've been losing weight, so like it's going to be fine, I guess. I don't know. I just hate to waste my time knitting something that isn't going to fit me right. Says the girl who didn't swatch. I don't know. I just don't know. Tell me what to do. Tell me what to do. That's it for my projects. Next I could do decisions. Let me talk about my Broadway plans. So, okay. I showed you that I had 44 grams left. About. And that's pretty typical for me. Every time I knit a pair of socks, I usually get somewhere between like 40 and 50 grams left over. That's like a lot of yarn. And I want to knit socks for myself because I'll wear them. They're snuggly. I love them. Who doesn't? But the leftovers I really want to use in a meaningful way. And so I really want to create a Broadway blanket out of all my club yarns, scraps. So I went on a hunt to try and figure out what projects I wanted to knit with this because I'm going to be honest, I went back and forth. I don't want to marl these together, okay? Like, I mean, look at them. Look at the skein. They are so unique that I really don't want to marl them together because I want their true Broadway theme color to shine through individually as a skein. And I also don't really know how much I want. Like, I like the idea of being able to add this into a blanket as I finish the socks. You know what I mean? So that I'm not just throwing this ball back into my stash to like hurry up and wait to use it another time. I'd like to kind of do the project in tandem with when I'm knitting those socks. So it's like a slow progression and then eventually I'll be like, oh, my blanket's ready, you know? So I looked at a lot of different patterns. In my planning, I did lots of searching. I thought maybe at first I would find something like, I think the one that I'm thinking of is the rad vent throw, where you knit a bunch of squares and then you have a contrast color to kind of knit a border and seam them all together. I thought it would be fun to be able to just knit a bunch of squares until I run out of yarn, and then I can sort of piece the blanket together in a, in a color pattern scheme sort of that I like, and kind of control it stylistically in that way. So it's not as scrappy, because each skein is going to knit up so uniquely. Really want them to shine through as the yarns as they are, if that makes sense. So I thought about doing something like that, but then I thought, am I really going to want to spend all that time seaming something together? I don't quite know. It's really not my favorite thing. I think you probably can relate. I just don't love a seaming situation. I don't know. Maybe if I'm patient, do it little by little, I won't be that frustrated by it. But I know I don't like it, and I don't want this to be painful. I'm here for the joy. I'm probably overthinking it. But anyway, those are my initial thoughts, okay? So, I don't know. I was doing some searching, and I found a couple of things that I liked that I wanted to share. I don't know. So maybe if you're like me and you're looking for something to do with like some scraps or like some random skeins of yarn, I thought I'd give you some more pattern ideas. So I guess here's that. One of the ones I considered was a pattern called From Grandma with Love, and I believe it's a Melanie Berg pattern. I'm really turned on to her patterns right now. I'm going to knit a cardigan of hers later this year. I actually have this shawl sitting here. I knit her Nick shawl. There's a couple of sweaters of hers I have like in my favorites that I really would like to knit. I don't know. I like her style. I think it kind of works for the things that I like. And I really enjoyed knitting one of her projects before. So again, it's kind of the square thing. I could knit as many squares as I wanted. I could pick a contrast color that would work well to like tie it all together. Pretty cohesive, cute. I'm not sure if it's going to use up all of my yarn though. And at the end of the day, that's kind of the goal. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to have 5,000 different squares of one color. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But I don't want to have like 10 squares of the same color and then have leftover squares. I don't think. So that's kind of like on a probably not list, but it's cute. There's also lace, and I really want it to be something that's so cozy and warm. Like I don't know that I want there to be holes in it. So that was my first thought. Another thought that I had, and another pattern that's pretty cool, I'm going to kind of tie these in, is the beekeeper's quilt. And so you knit these cute little hexagon, hexy puff type of things, and you stuff them with scrap yarn or like, I don't know, batting or something so that they're like squishy, and then they're teeny tiny. You could knit as many of them as you wanted, which I could knit a crop load out of every single one, keep them in bags, and then assemble and seam these teeny tiny little puffs together to be one cohesive quilt at the end. And it would have some weight, which I like. I think it'd be really squishy and warm. I think it'd be fun for like family and pets at the end. I just don't know how much I'm going to love knitting those teeny tiny things. So considered it, but then I saw some people not stuffing them and knitting them flat. Also thought that was pretty cute, but they're so small. So then I thought, well, what if it was bigger? And I found this pattern called Sixes, and it's similar to that, except for they're not stuffed. The hexagons are bigger, and you do have some seaming if you're looking for that hexagon type quilt vibe. I think the vibe I'm really looking for is like a quilt type of thing. I love the look of it. I think it's going to be really standout-ish. I just want it to be like, I want somebody to come into my house when it's finished and be like, wow, you know? Anyway. So then I found Sixes and I thought, maybe that. So it'd be a good pattern if you're like me and you're like, I like the idea of having this beekeeper's quilt, you know? But you don't want to knit these teeny things and you don't want to stuff them, but you're okay with the seaming. I think that could be a nice pattern, and really you can knit as many as you want or as few as you want, and you can arrange and customize, or you can seam as you go. I think it'd be a really nice stash buster. But then I got to what my 3 favorite ones are. The one that I love the most, but do not think I will be knitting, at least not scrappy, is a DK pattern. It's called Quinn's Quilt, and I'll put the picture up here, of course. I stumbled across this pattern. It is remarkable. It calls for, so if you have DK in your stash, you're trying to use up, I think that this is a beautiful way to use it up and make something really special for yourself or someone you love. It calls for, if I'm remembering correctly, 9 skeins of DK weight. And I think, I didn't purchase the pattern, but it looks like it comes with a sort of coloring page type of thing, so you can plot your color pattern. And it's knit in sections, and it is just a beautiful quilt. And then you pick a contrast color, and you need a couple skeins of that to knit the outsides. But I mean, come on, tell me that isn't beautiful. I really would love to do that. I don't think I'm going to have enough yarn to make it cohesive enough. I think it might be too scrappy of me to be able to figure out how to put that together with my Broadway yarns. So it's something I would really love to do, but I think I'm going to have to find some DK weight yarn in my future to purchase when I'm purchasing yarn again for that project of mine. But if you have DK in your stash and you really are looking for some way, like I think, you know, I've been talking a lot about how I have all of these like random single skeins and they're great, but how am I supposed to use them together? You know, if you have that problem because you bought so many sock sets or single skeins or whatever, you know what I mean? You've got single skeins of DK for whatever reason you have them. Or if, you know, I guess if you want it to be a little scrappier and you got that fingering weight, hold it double. I think this is a really beautiful way to use up some stash. Anyway, very passionate because I want to knit this. But the other pattern that I really like, and I know I would love knitting, but I don't think is going to work, is the Jigsaw Puzzle by Stephen West, the blanket. I started knitting the Jigsaw Puzzle shawl by Stephen West a couple of years ago. I ended up frogging it, but I loved the process of it. It would be easy for me to knit this and pick it up and move on as I go, and I would just need to separate my balls into two. Where I would come into the problem is that I was looking at the gram measurements for the DK blanket, and a lot of the shapes, like I don't think I'd use up all of my yarn. A lot of the shapes, like there's a couple that take only 8 grams of DK weight yarn, but then some of the shapes take 43 grams of DK weight yarn. So if this was DK weight, I'd be fine, but I'd have to divide it double and I'd only be able to get half of a shape per scrap. And I don't know if I like the look of that or not. The other thing about this that I am not thrilled about, and I've seen a lot of people talk about it too in the reviews, is that it's an asymmetrical blanket. So it's a lot shorter on one end than it is on the opposite, and I would like my blanket to be a very symmetrical rectangular shape, I think. I'm sure there's people that have figured out ways to kind of add in different shapes and triangles and other things to make it symmetrical, which is definitely an option, but I think because I don't know how scrappy it's going to look and if I'm going to love that, by using fingering weight instead of, you know, held double instead of DK weight, I think that's going to turn me off from trying to figure out that puzzle of completing the blanket, if you will. But if you don't mind that and you've got DK weight, or you just like don't care and you want it to be scrappy, I think it's a really great project for that. It's striking, it's fun, you're going to be able to knit as you go. If it works the same as the shawl, he has you knit one shape and then kind of leave some stitches on hold, and then you pick up a couple stitches and knit another shape, and then eventually it really is like a puzzle. And it was so much fun when I was knitting the shawl. I think it's something I'd like to knit again. And I also think the structure is similar to the Vertices Unite shawl. So if you've knit that by him, or if you're familiar with that pattern, I think the picking up and working with the yarn is very similar. So I think it would be very fun. The pattern I think I have decided on, and I'm still not 100%, but I did purchase it. That would be easier for me to knit as I go, and it would be customizable the way that I want, and will have some seaming, but I think I'll be able to live with it, is I Quilt 2. And I'm going to have to wait a little bit until I finish this pair of socks, but I could kind of customize and knit a couple of squares with more than one color and put a really cute quilt vibe together and knit as many as I want until it's the size that I know I want. And I don't know, I think I'd have a really fun quilt looking pattern. And I think it's also fun because in the pattern description, it says that it was written to be used with the Trilogy Yarns Advent Calendar a couple of Decembers ago. And I'm using Trilogy Yarns. So I don't know. I think that might be what I'm going to do, but I'm not quite sure. I'm actually going to go hang out at the yarn store this afternoon and knit. So I'm going to talk to those ladies and see if they have any ideas. They usually have things that give me some more ideas or help me figure out a gauge or confidence to figure out working it a different way. But I'm like sitting here talking to you with this yarn. Anyhow, I don't know. Those are some blanket ideas for you. If you've got any other ideas, let me know. But that's what I'm thinking. I'm going to make a Broadway blanket, and I just want it to be really standoutish and special, and I love the quilt vibe, and I want it to be something heavy. So I like the DK weight blanket ideas, but I think a fingering weight will be just fine. Anyway, that's about it for the knitting piece of this. I'm going to talk to you about my stash update, show you some new yarns that I have, and tell you a funny story about something. And then we'll get into the Q&A. So let's go back to January. I started January with 114 skeins of yarn in my stash. And this doesn't count mini skeins, and this doesn't count any partial skeins, and it does not count any of the not indie dyed yarn basically that I have, with the exception of the cotton yarn. So I have some partial skeins of things like the Bernat blanket yarn that I use for gifting my friends baby knits or knitting blankets I just really love that yarn. I have some skeins of that, and just like some random like acrylic yarn I've accumulated. Yes, like it's kind of my stash, but most of it's partial skeins or scraps, and it's not yarn that I actively work with. It's for special occasion projects, so I'm really not counting that surplus as my stash. I'm just counting the full indie dyed yarn skeins because that's primarily what I purchase and have coming in and out. In the future, that might change, but right now, I just want to use these that I have and give them some love. And also, I'm just trying to save money and like keep my creative juices flowing. I want to buy a house. I'm working on paying off student loan debt and my car loan and all of these things. And so, I don't know. I just think there's no better way than to keep focused. And I think, I've noticed a trend that a lot of people are doing similar things, and I just want to be intentional and appreciate some of the stuff that I have. So that's my personal goal with this. Not here to say that you shouldn't be buying yarn or you shouldn't be, adding to your stash, or you should be doing this. I just, this is my intention this year, and I'm going to share that with you. So you got to do what brings you joy. You have to do what makes you comfortable. And even if you are buying yarn and supporting local dyers or whatever you're doing, I think everybody can benefit from like some stash talk and ideas. Anyway, so that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I've got goals ahead. I certainly want to be buying yarn, but financially I have some really big goals that I would like to accomplish that are super important to me. And so that's why I'm tracking my stash in and out this year and being really intentional with my purchases and my knitting. Because I love what I have and I want to use it up. So I'm not by any means trying to like get to zero. This is more of like a data and mindfulness and like an intentional like crafting type chat, if you will. So in case you're new or you needed that reminder, that's why I'm doing this. Because I want to buy a house. I don't want to be debt free. And go on vacations and travel and raise kids and, anyway. So that's what I'm doing. So anyway, January 2023, I had 114 skeins in my stash. The skeins that I had come in were, I actually have them here to remind you. So this is also going to be like my acquisitions. The only yarn I'm actively buying is this Broadway Club. And so I think I showed this last time, but I'll show it again. It came in January. The Broadway playbill that the yarn was based on was Be More Chill. And this was the yarn. So this was all I had come in. Come on. Look how pretty that is. I'll give you a closer look. Anyway, this came in January. So this was the only yarn I purchased in January. This was my one in. And my skeins out, I had 4. And of those 4, it was the white yarn that I used for this Lily's Sugar and Cream. I dipped into this blue, so that yarn went out. I still have some left, but I'm going to continue to knit through it when I'm working on dishcloth still, so that counts as an out for me. The Broadway yarn, A Christmas Story, went out for socks for me, and then this yarn also went out for my hat. So 4 skeins total out, which left me at the end of January and the beginning of February at 111 skeins in my stash. So looking at this is like my knitting notes journal, by the way. I keep notes for all of my podcasts in here and knitting ideas that I have and project notes and tracking my stash and my goals and anything knitting I just keep in here. So February, I started with 111 skeins. And the yarn that came in, which honestly might be my favorite Broadway yarn to begin with, the yarn that came in was the Playbill. This month was Some Like It Hot. And this is the yarn. Look how fun that is. So I'll show you a closer look. So this came in. I love like the neon speckles and the blue. I can't wait to knit with this one eventually. Anyway, this came in. And then I had 2 skeins go out. And those skeins were this Broadway sock. And then in February, I cast on this Flower Hill Fleeces yarn in that Trunk Island tank. So those 2 came out, and that left me at the end of February and the beginning of March with 110 skeins of yarn in my stash. So the funny story that I have for you is going to be an extra accidental added skein of yarn into my stash, because I had mentioned that one of the skeins that I had was lost in our move over the summer. And I searched high and low. We lost a random box of crap. I was convinced that this yarn was in this box. Zach lost shampoo. He lost a pair of shoes. Like, you name it. And if you've moved anywhere before, you probably know, like, you pack your stuff up as organized as you can, but there's always this, like, one random box of crap that just didn't go anywhere else for any reason. You just, like, find random shit. Excuse my French. You just find random stuff and you shove it in a box, and then you're carrying it with you, and it's just, like, this random box of crap, okay? And it belongs in 20 different places. Your junk drawer, your bathroom, your kitchen, whatever. So we lost, I'm convinced, a box of stuff like that because we have searched high and low for this. And I thought this skein of yarn was gone forever, to the point where I went and replaced it. And I reached out to Nancy of Trilogy Yarns, and I was like, is there any way you have this extra skein? This is one of my favorite musicals. I lost it in our move. I'm really sad about it. I now don't have a complete collection of your monthly clubs. And she said, there's no extra, but I will dye you some. So I went so far as to ask her for extras. She dyed it up for me. I got it. And then last week, I had all of these events during the week. I had a big event on Saturday and another big event the Thursday before my colleagues were putting on. And I have a name tag that I have to wear when we have these events. So people know, hey, you belong to this organization. Like, this is my girl. I can talk to her. You're a staff member. And I lost my name tag. So I was in such a hurry one morning. I couldn't find my name tag. I was all stressed out and flustered. I never lose things. And I could not find it anywhere. I usually keep it in my car or on my refrigerator. It wasn't either of those places. I was hoping it was at the office. Flipped the office upside down at home. Flipped my car inside out. Didn't find the name tag. Eventually I did. I didn't find the name tag that day, but I opened up the center console of my car, and This bag was in it. And I was like, no, this is not my Broadway yarn. So I have searched everywhere in the world for the last 8 months looking for this stinking skein of yarn and never found it. But for some reason, never thought to open up the center console of my car. This just really goes to show you like how much I actually do not drive. I drive myself to and from work, and unless I have somewhere else to go, I'm not driving. Zach drives me everywhere. We take his car. And you need to tell me neither of us opened up my center console in all those months. Anyway, so I found it, and here's the skein. Little Shop of Horrors, which is one of my favorite shows. I was in it. It's so fun. And here's the skein to go with it. Super cute, super fun. Love the red, the yellow speckles are in there. So now I have 2 skeins of this. Two skeins. So I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I feel like I mentioned this somewhere and someone told me to make his and her socks, which I thought could be cute. So that's going to be counted in my March skein count, but I just couldn't pass up an opportunity to tell you that story because it is ridiculous. Oh, I'm just not ready for this. Do I need to turn that light out? I don't know. It's kind of fine. No, I need to turn it out. Hello. It's a few days later, and I'm now sitting down to record the Q&A session because I think it's going to be a little lengthy. And if you'll notice, 3 days ago, Kristina did not have a finished hat, and today she do. Doesn't it look so cute? I put it on and I haven't taken it off. It's not blocked, nothing, but look at it. How cute is it? How cute. Anyway, another development is that I actually decided against doing the I Quilt 2 pattern for my leftover Broadway yarn. And when I finished my hat today, I decided that I was going to knit the jigsaw puzzle blanket, and I cast it on. So here's a little update for you. This is the first triangle jigsaw puzzle blanket by Stephen West. Love a good Stephen West pattern. Anyway, it's supposed to be DK weight, but I've got my fingering double, so I've wound it up here. It's my first colorway, and I think this is going to be a much longer term, slow going type project because I have to finish knitting a Broadway pair of socks before I can add another color in. But you know what? That just means that there's like 47 shapes and I'm going to do 1 color per shape, I think, unless I run out of yarn. Then in that case, it might be 2 colors per shape. But we'll just see. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. I'm excited. I don't think it's going to look too scrappy. I think it's going to be kind of crazy, exactly what I'm thinking for this like standout blanket. Anyway, that's a little update. But we're here for the Q&A. A lot of very good and unexpected questions this time. So I don't have these in any particular order. I've got coffee. But I'm just going to start at the top. So at the beginning of this episode, I mentioned that I was doing this Q&A because there were so many awesome people that joined us during Vlogmas or during a couple of my other videos like knit vlogs or my 2023 knitting plan. So if that's you, welcome. This is mostly for you if you're new to me. But if you have been here for a while, some of these things might be new to you too. They're questions that I actually had to spend some time thinking about. So this is going to be, I don't know, a pretty open, honest Kristina Q&A. So this was not a specific question, but I figured I would answer this up at the beginning. And that is, who am I? Where do I live? And how long have I been knitting? So my name is Kristina with a K, obviously, hence Krafty Kristina. I am 27 years old. I've been knitting for 9 years this month, I think. And I live in Western Pennsylvania. Short, sweet, and to the point. I started knitting when I was in college, and my college degree is in musical theater. I'm a huge lover of the arts. I'm a very creative person. I actually decided to call my YouTube channel Krafty Kristina. That for a couple of reasons. First of all, it was my Ravelry name. But second of all, I have more hobbies than what is good for me. Maybe not as good for me, but I have a lot of hobbies. I'm very creative, and I feel like I have a lot of crafts. And so when I started this channel, I started it with a knitting podcast, but I kind of had hoped that eventually, once I don't know, figured out the whole like internet YouTube type of situation, that maybe this would grow into a space that I can share a lot more about my personal crafts. Like I love cooking, I love baking. My degree is in musical theater. I sang my first words. I wanted to be an opera singer for a long time. So I'm a huge lover of the arts. I also love gardening. And growing my own food, and hope to have a homestead in the next couple of years and like really become like a homemaker kind of. I don't know. I just love a lot of things. I like reading, and not really a craft, but I don't know. I just feel like I have a really like diverse amount of crafting I could be sharing, or things that are very creative and near and dear to my heart, hence Krafty Kristina. But for now, it's mostly knitting. I do talk a little bit about some of my gardening. I have an indoor greenhouse gardening. Every now and then I'll share some things about that. You'll usually get more of that type of content in my vlogs. I showed some of that during Vlogmas. I also have some of that stuff that I share over on my Instagram. I don't know. I just feel like a lot of crafty people usually have a lot of hobbies, and I'm one of those people, and this is my place to share that. Right now it's primarily knitting. If you're new, or if you're watching this, or you're returning, I would love to know what things you're interested in seeing. I am very creative. I love editing now. I've like kind of learned some editing things. I love music a lot. So I kind of make it a goal to make these videos, like specifically the vlogs I really like making, because I take great care in figuring out, okay, what do I want like the vibe or the mood of this video being? So I, getting comfy here. I don't know. I just really like throwing my creativity into those things. So anyway, I'd really love to know like what types of things you would like to see, because I'm more than just a knitter, and knitting content is something that's really easy and fun for me to create. But I'd be more than happy to share more parts of like my crafting life, like about my garden, or if there's recipes for things that you'd like to see. I just don't know. What do you want to learn? For me, what do we want to create together? I love ideas. I think the internet's really great at creating a really fun community to learn from, and I really want this channel, and I try to make this a priority in my own life, is to be welcoming to everyone and come as you are. I come as I am. I say that a lot. But, really, how can we become a community to learn and grow and create better relationships and be intentional about our crafts? I think I kind of went on a tangent there, but I wanted to go back to how I began knitting, and my degree is in musical theater. And my freshman year of college, I was in the musical Urinetown. And if you know anything about theater, or if you don't, a lot of times during performances, or something that we call tech week, you can have a lot of downtime while you're waiting. And so it's more so like that if you're on the performing aspect, a little less if you're on the technical aspect, like doing the lights, doing the sound, stage managing. Like there's a lot of things that come into play to make the arts happen. And as an actor, there's something that you do It's really common during Tech Week, is called Q to Q, where the stage manager needs to run through the entire show. It's like a lot of the time the cast's first time wearing costumes. It's their first time with the orchestra. If it's a musical, it's the first time with all the sound and the lights. Like, it's the first time for everything. And when you're watching a show, you see something that's really seamless, right? And I mean, ideally, it's live theater, so you could see some mistakes or forgotten words, or, you know, improv if something happens. We're only human, right? So, but there's a lot of practice that comes in getting everything to look right. The sound coming in at the right time, the lights coming in at the right time, the actors coming in on and off the stage. And there's someone called a stage manager that really makes a lot of that happen, and cues the people who are running the soundboard or the light board or the people backstage, making sure the actors are on stage at the right time, know when those cues happen. So, long-winded way to say, during Q to Q, there can be a lot of downtime when there's 5 people on stage and they're trying to adjust the lighting with the lighting designer, or the sound with the sound designer, and the stage manager trying to take notes and make sure they know that on this specific word in this specific line, the sound needs to go, or the lights need to change. You know, so it's a lot of attention to detail. Anyway, sometimes it takes a long time when you're doing that type of technical run through to get through a scene or something. And so, all that being said, you can have a lot of downtime. So for me, you know, a lot of the people in our cast, we would do homework, we'd kind of hang out, you know, we're trying to get ahead because it's a very busy week, especially on opening week. And I had finished my homework, and there was a girl in my cast who was knitting, and I saw she was knitting, and I was like, girl, what are you doing? And she was like, girl, I'm knitting. And I really wanted to learn. She told me if I went and got yarn and needles, then she would teach me. I guess her mom was a knitter, and her mom had recently taught her, and she became obsessed with it. She was knitting hats and scarves and ear warmers and all types of things. And so I went out and I went to Walmart at, I don't know, probably midnight, and I got some random knitting needles and I got some random yarn, and I brought it, and she taught me the next day. And then I watched some videos, and anyway, I've just been knitting ever since. So it was a great pastime when we had productions. It's been a hobby ever since, very stress relieving. And I don't know, I just think it's a lot of fun. I think really learning that type of craft is very like slow living and creative, and I don't know, it's just kind of my jam. So that's kind of who I am and where I live and how I started knitting. I wrote all these questions down in here, but I didn't really put them in any particular order. So, I'm just going to go down the line. I should get a pen here. The next question is, I've received this a lot of times, and so I thought I would give a little refresher or introduce this concept to people who are new. And a lot of people are asking me, what is a lady-in-law? Or who is a lady-in-law? Or what does that mean? Like, how did that happen? And it's actually kind of simple. So I have been I say it's simple, and I'm going to give you a really long-winded answer, but lady-in-law in short just stands for all of the female members of my boyfriend's family. So you marry somebody and their family becomes their in-laws. My boyfriend and I have been together for like 7 years, I think. We're not married, but plan to be, and so we're together that, you know, his family has become my family has become his family, and so I consider the ladies in his family to be my in-laws. And I actually kind of coined that term because I like to be, I don't know, I'm just careful with what I put on the internet, right? This is a space that I want everyone to be comfortable coming into, and I think it's a place that we can kind of chat and connect, and you can learn from me or get some inspiration from me. I often get inspiration from all of you, but it's also important to me that I keep parts of my personal life private, and I respect the privacy of the people in my life. And so to reserve the privacy of some of my female in-laws, I just call them my lady in-laws. So the term kind of got coined on a whim, I guess, because the lady-in-laws in particular are my boyfriend's mom and aunts and grandma and, well, grandparents, grandmas. And my boyfriend also has siblings that have wives or girlfriends or fiancés, and that also includes them. So I like to knit things for my lady-in-laws because they are really supportive of my knitting. They are really interested in my knitting. A lot of them have been artists themselves. Some of them I've actually taught to knit. I don't know. And I just always have my knitting with me, and they always want to know what I'm working on. And when I learned to knit socks, actually, they were so intrigued by the fact that you could actually knit socks. Like, it was something that, I don't know that they ever really thought about until they saw that I was knitting socks. And when I learned to knit socks, they were so excited about it. They wanted to know for practice if I would knit them some. And I said yes, and I told them, I'm like, why don't you, at the time I was not living in Western Pennsylvania where they live. I was living in Las Vegas. And so anyway, I told them, we had a conversation about like fingering weight sock yarn, and I told them if they wanted to go to a local yarn store and feel it and pick out the colors, like it might help them, and they were really excited to do that. So they all went yarn shopping, and granted, I think I had learned to knit socks maybe 3 or 4 months before this. Like, I was no experienced sock knitter at all. And I told them, and then they went and bought the yarn and they shipped it to me, and I knit them all socks. So early on, when I first started my channel, we had just my boyfriend and I had just relocated back to the Pittsburgh area, and I had been working on my socks all summer long during our move for them. So yeah, if you hear lady-in-law, I'm just talking about the ladies that are my in-laws. And that's it. So, my lady-in-laws. Somebody wanted to know what I do for work, probably because I'm always talking about my 9-to-5 non-knitting job. And, I had just mentioned I really try to keep things private with my personal life. Because the internet, in my opinion, is kind of forever. And there are certain things about my privacy that are really important to me. And so I'm not going to disclose where I work, but I will talk a little bit about the work that I do. And it's also kind of a loaded question because what I currently do for work is not what I have always done for work. But what I used to do for work has brought me to where I am now. I hope that's not confusing. So I'm talking about my work. So I primarily work from home. I am in the nonprofit sector. So I work for a nonprofit organization. It's actually a global nonprofit organization. And within that global organization, there are several local offices. And so, I have always been in nonprofit fundraising. My dream job has always been to be a community engagement manager. And so the role that I have is a community engagement manager and a nonprofit fundraiser for development. So basically I plan events, and I plan them for people in my community. And my territory is actually much larger than Western Pennsylvania. So I cover 2 states. I cover 2 states. And my job is really to just put on community engagement events and fundraise and make sure that in the organization that I am in, that the education and the resources are provided to the people that need them the most, if that makes sense. So that's what I do for work now. And I really like it. It's challenging. It's made me grow a whole lot. And well, okay, so let me say it like this. So I went to school for musical theater. I was always very artistic. I loved writing. That was another one of my crafts I never shared. I loved writing. I was in every musical, choir, singing, performance group. Took voice lessons, like anything I could possibly find in the tiny town that I grew up in, I did. And I knew how much theater kind of helped me. I didn't know until later in my adulthood that I was going to be diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. But I knew that I had a lot of like hard feelings as a kid. This is kind of a weird topic, but I knew I had a lot of like anxiety as a kid, but I didn't understand what it was. But I knew that writing and playing the piano and playing my guitar and playing the ukulele and singing like really helped. And so that was like my outlet. And I don't know. I laugh when I tell this story. When I was looking to go to school, I initially wanted to go to be a music teacher because I wanted to be a choir director and I wanted to direct the musicals like my local high school teacher did. But, you know, when you're 17 and trying to make that big choice, the world is so much larger than you realize. So in hindsight, I think I did a really nice job, but I knew that I didn't want to learn how to play all of the instruments. Like I didn't want to have to be a band teacher. I didn't want to be a band director. Like I just wanted to do like the choir part. And like the musical part, but at the time that I was going to college, the recession had just hit and they were eliminating all of the arts programs from schools, particularly in my area, and it was really difficult. And I kind of felt like when I was going to college, there wasn't going to be a job for me after I graduated. And then what was the point of going to school for one job that I wouldn't even be able to do? So naturally, all of the people that supported me in my musical gifts in my life are like, just go for theater. You could be an actor. It'll be great. I'm like, it's fine. And I actually grew more than I think I realized I was going to in college. And so I went to college for performance, and I don't know. I was 17. Like, what do you do when you're like, I'm going to college because that's what they tell you to do. Anyway, so that is what I started doing. And I thought I wanted to really like give back to the next generations. And so when I started, I was like, well, I guess I'm going to be a performer. Like, I guess I'll go to Disney. Like, maybe I'll do children's theater. Maybe I'll write a book. Like, I thought, I don't know. I guess I just thought, at that time, like my brain capacity was really like, well, I can impact people by doing children's theater and like bringing the arts to them. So that's what I thought. But the longer that I was in college, the more I started to realize how many more outlets and opportunities to be part of something bigger, to actually help people. That's where the community engagement manager piece comes in. That's where like that kind of hit perspective for me. So I started to realize I could do so much more than stand on a stage and sing to people and like impact them. I mean, surely like that's inspirational to some people, but I started to realize that like nonprofit organizations were a thing, and I loved working in the community. I did a ton of volunteer things when I was in high school. I loved giving back. I loved helping people. I just feel like that's kind of like my purpose in life, is to be, I mean, maybe not my entire purpose, but like I really genuinely care about the things that I do and the people in my life, probably too much for my own good. And I don't know, the thought that I could do that professionally was really eye-opening for me. So when I was in college, I actually took a couple of internships in different states with arts, like summer stock theaters. One was an opera company, and the other was like a summer stock theater. And I spent my entire summers there. One of them I was in like donor relations and patron services, where I learned a lot about just like working with the general public and ticketing, and how to work with like high level donors, and like what was philanthropy, and what did like general donations and like gifts to fund an organization would do. And then the other one, I was in arts administration, arts education intern, where I did a lot of their social media. I did their website and their blog posts. I actually started to high school student programs there that summer. One was an ambassador program. And the other was like a summer theater camp. So I ended up like teaching and working with a lot of the local artists. And then I also just learned a lot about how like a theater company runs or nonprofit organization runs. And I started to realize that basically I could do like arts administration, or I could do like arts education, and, find ways to help more people, if that makes sense. So I kind of did that. And then my eyes were sort of set on how do I make that happen? And somewhere along the way, somebody in my family put a bug in my ear that I should probably visit Las Vegas, because everything I ever wanted to do in my life with my crafts or my profession, I would probably be able to do there in that city. And it would be great for networking for me. And also, I really hate cold weather. I hate the snow. I grew up in Western Pennsylvania. Like, my friends, I hated it here. And I knew, I was like, I got to get out of here. Like, I can do bigger things than, you'll laugh now, here I am. But it comes full circle. So I had my heart set on moving to Las Vegas. I actually, when I graduated, got an internship out there and started sensory-friendly performances at a theater company there. And this might be giving too much information. Anyway, I worked with Cirque du Soleil out there. I did a lot of things while I was there in the nonprofit and fundraising space. And I don't know. I just had a lot of opportunities. So I did a lot of different things in development and theater and nonprofit organizations. And like, my ultimate career goal is to start my own arts nonprofit organization with grant funded programs for you hear it all the time, but really like underserved youth, and separately grant funded programs for people who are on the autism spectrum or have some type of exceptional need where they really need to kind of integrate the arts into their life to help them learn and grow and develop in other ways. Because the arts, I could go on forever, but I think the arts are really important. So anyway, all of those things happened, and I had a lot of really great opportunities out there to really like grow and flex my muscles and learn about things that were so much bigger than I ever could imagine. And then the pandemic hit, and my boyfriend and I were out there, and we were really missing home. We were laid off from our jobs for some time. Like, there's so many things I think that people learned during that time. But in that time, we started, having those greater conversations about where do we want to be? Who do we want to be? What do we want to become? What do we want for our kids? What do we want for our future? Like, what are those priorities for us? And we realized that something that was really important to us was that we be closer to our families, because eventually we would like to have kids, and it is so important for us to give them the upbringing that they deserve. And a lot of the things that we personally wanted were not things that we could do in Vegas, as much as I fell in love with it. Maybe not fell in love with it, but like, I loved it because of how much I grew as a person. That, brought us back here. And I guess that can lead me to skip ahead to a question I have on another page, now that I'm waffling. But someone wanted to know, now that you knew that I was in Las Vegas, I lived here, I moved, and now I'm back. Somebody wanted to know what my favorite thing about working and living in Las Vegas is or was, versus what is my favorite thing about living and working in the Pittsburgh area. I feel kind of a loaded question, but I think they both serve their purpose for different ways. I was born and raised in this area. Our families are here. And I think my favorite thing about working and living in Las Vegas is, or was, it's really hard for me to answer this question, actually. It's really hard to pick a favorite, because I feel like Vegas is so black and white, whereas the rest of life is not. Like, it's really hard to find a gray area. So the things that you find there are so good or so bad. And there is like not a whole lot in between. But the things that were so great were, I mean, I'm really a sun and like warm lover, right? So obviously I loved the weather. I always felt like there was something new to learn or discover. I think food's great. There's a lot of culture out there, which I really loved. I am a huge learner, hence why I have so many crafts and why I'm telling you all these things I'm telling you. But I think my favorite things about living and working there are probably the weather and how there's always something new, like changing to learn or discover. Like, it's a very fast-paced area, which honestly ended up being my least favorite part. It caused me a lot of anxiety. It was like one of the negative things. There are a lot of negative things out there. But, you know, I love the weather. We love hiking. There were so many great hikes out there. And always something new to do. Working out there, I was really fortunate in some of the roles that I held out there. I think that I fell into some really, really great spots that were exactly what I needed when I didn't know that I needed them. And the wealth of knowledge that I got from working with the people that I work with, or the high-level donors that I worked with, or, you know, just the people that were around my companies. I worked quite a few star-studded events, if you will, and really got to see, you know, I don't know, just meeting, I think, the people that were there and learning from the experiences that they had were really, really valuable to me. So I guess that was my favorite thing, if that answers it. I grew a lot as a person, so I think, you know, while I don't think I will ever live there again, and I don't regret not living there anymore and moving back here, I think very fondly about my time there in that city, because I moved out there all by myself when I was 21, and I was there until I was like 26. So, you know, I was out there for quite some time, alone for half of that time, and I don't know, I just am so proud of like the things that I grew and learned and accomplished while I was there. So I think the growth in my life and the opportunities I had are definitely my favorite things. And a girl always loves some sunshine. So, and a good breakfast burrito, which I crave regularly. And I wish there was like a Roberto's taco shop across the street from my house. If you're out there, you got a Roberto's near you, you know, have a potato burrito for me, please. Red sauce. My favorite thing about living and working in Pittsburgh is a whole lot different. I think it has been kind of difficult, to be honest, to see what things I really liked because of how difficult our move was. Back here, and our first year here, there was just a lot of personal things that were really difficult. Had some health issues. Everything is fine now and we're great now, but just trying to recover from all of that, really just, I feel like just now in the last like couple of months, I really feel like I've started to kind of be settled and be able to like live my life. What I will say is that I love working at the company that I'm at now, because I always wondered, in hindsight, and all these opportunities and like exciting things that I had happening in my life, I had always wondered, when would I be ready for XYZ? When would I be ready to get promoted? When would I be ready to plan my own events? When would I be ready to ask a donor for money, or whatever it was? When would I be ready to be a people manager? I want to be an executive director and CEO someday. When would I be ready to manage a person, to eventually learn to manage a team, eventually learn to manage like an entire organization, like when would I be ready for those things? And I never felt like I was ready to just spread my wings and fly. And I don't really know like quite, I think I got kind of backed into some places that were positions maybe that had me stuck and I didn't know it yet. But when I moved back here, I knew that was the most important for me to bring the wealth of knowledge that I had gained in such a large city back to the area that raised me. And my favorite thing about that is that I think I finally am able to be at a company that allows me to be up for the challenge. And if I say I want to do this, they're going to say, okay, how do we get you there? Whether it's personal or professional. And I'm really lucky to be in that position. And I'm really grateful for that. So I would say, you know, while my organization, I could probably work it in several other places. I think, you know, my favorite thing about working here is the team that I have that is, you know, working with me or above me or around me to really, I don't know, foster my continued growth and is allowing me to flex my muscles. And not only that, but they also trust me. And I'm in a really, really lucky place to be. So working in this area, I think that's definitely my favorite thing. Living here, maybe ask me in like 2 months when it's warm. I'm not struggling as much this winter as I did last winter, but I definitely will say, you know, my boyfriend and I were kind of all alone with the exception of like some friends that became our family, sorta, in Vegas. And here we definitely have our people. So it's really nice. Like, my boyfriend's family, they're always celebrating literally everything. Every holiday, every birthday. Like, it's like we're getting cake, somebody's making dinner at their house, like a just because dinner. Oh, I found this new recipe, we're gonna have everybody over. Like, they're always doing things. And I don't know, I just think it's really nice to not have to get on a plane for 5 hours to just spend some time. Like, we can just drive an hour to see my family, or we can drive 15, 20 minutes to see Zach's family. And I don't know, just being around those people. And what I will say too is that I realized during the pandemic that the most important parts of my life were not so much the big accomplishments that I had been chasing, like getting to the top of that mountain. It's like the small steps along the way, like the smallest moments are the most important to me and are the most beautiful to me. And I sometimes need practice in slowing down. And so I think what is something that I will be learning to love is really relishing in those small moments and the intentional ways of living that I think you can find here, and like the trusting relationships that you can find here that are not always so easy to find in such a large city like that. So I'm putting myself up to the challenge, but I know what beautiful things I really want my future children to experience. And I'm really excited because I feel like they can get all of that here while being around the people that, you know, we love the most. That's really important. So 2 questions there. Kind of deep right at the top, huh? So let's go back to something that is a question I hear often, which is similar to lady-in-law. Somebody asked what if I could talk about oopsies, and specifically the oopsie gusset, that I reference sometimes. An oopsie is really just like a giant mistake. I mean, I guess it could be a small mistake, but just some kind of mistake in your knitting. And it really started because when I had just learned to knit socks, I had started knitting a pair for a lady-in-law, and I accidentally knit my gusset. I forgot all about this. I don't have the socks to show you. I wish I did. There might be a photo on my Ravelry page, which is linked below. But the oopsie gusset came from, I was knitting my first pair of lady-in-law socks, and I was having a hard time with the gusset decreases because I do a heel flap and gusset. I was having a hard time with the gusset decreases, like looking a little wonky. And so someone told me that instead of slip, slip, knit, you could knit two together through the back loop and it would give you the same effect. And so I tried it, but I definitely tried it completely incorrectly. So I think I was just knitting two together. And so normally when you have a sock, the gusset kind of goes really nicely. And so for me, my gusset was like this. And it like came up on the top of the foot, and like the fit was okay. Like it was fine. But then I also accidentally knit an oopsie toe. So instead of the toe being in line with where the gusset should have been, the toe was in line with where the gusset ended up being. And so it was like the gusset was like this on the top of the sock, and then at the foot, it was like the toe was like this. Instead of like, you know, this, it was like this. So you put your foot in, and it was, anyway, so I did give those socks to her like that too. Anyway, but anytime I have a mistake, I talk about making an oopsie. I've actually thought about making a Ravelry page for this channel where we can put like, or you could put your oopsies in, and maybe we can make that like a segment of the podcast. But I'm not going to do that if like nobody cares. But I thought it could be funny because we're only human, you know? So we could all giggle at each other's oopsies, or, I mean, I'm no knitting expert, so I can't promise if you're like, I made this mistake, how do I fix it? But I can certainly try to guide you. I don't know. Or we can just giggle about it because it happens. That's an oopsie. Next question, somebody asked, what is the Pomodoro technique that I talk about, and what is like Pomodoro knitting? The Pomodoro technique is really just, I can link like a general page about it down below the description, but basically it is a timer focus method that is supposed to increase your productivity. So, I mentioned I work from home. I work a 9-to-5 job. Sometimes it's really intense. I do event planning and fundraising. And so if you're familiar with any of those things, like kind of like crunch time, I also work in a meeting heavy environment because a lot of us are remote. So we're always like Zooming and stuff to chat about things. It's not like we can walk down the hall and say, hey, quick question for you, like 5 days a week. So I do have a lot of check-in meetings and things, and I have to make the most of my not meeting time. So on a whim last fall, I was like on YouTube, and I found a video. I don't know. I wanted, like, it was starting to feel like fall, and I really wanted to have like some cozy music on or something. I lit a candle, and I did this YouTube search, and I was like fall study music or something, and this playlist came up, and I was like, cool, I'm gonna do it. And it was a little timer. It was a 30-minute Pomodoro focus session and a 5-minute break, and that's literally it. Like, there's different amounts of time you can do it. Like, you can do it for 50 minutes of focusing and 10-minute break. And there's this channel. I mean, I'm going to talk about this channel for forever and ever. It's called the Sherry Formula. I don't even know if that's the person's name who makes it, but if it's you, Sherry, I love you. Girl, I'm always watching your videos. But that's it. I literally put it on. She has like cute little pretty backgrounds. I mean, this channel does. I mean, you can Pomodoro focus without having any of this stuff. I just think it's nice to have on the background because I like the music. But I set a timer for 30 minutes. And then the timer goes off, and I stop what I'm doing at work, and I take a 5-minute break. And the 5-minute break is kind of used to like relax, do something, get up out of your chair. You can really do whatever you want. So I use my 5-minute break to my discretion. If I need to go change over a load of laundry, I change over a load of laundry. If I need to go to the bathroom, I'm going to go to the bathroom. If I need a snack, I'm going to get a snack. But most of the time, I don't need to do any of those things. And I have started doing what I call is Pomodoro knitting. And I have a project that I knit on in those 5-minute breaks. really whatever I feel like. A lot of the time I pick something that's easy though to focus on. So most of the time it's a sock. And what I also like about that is that it forces me to work on things maybe that I'm not so excited to work on right away. And in small increments. So I find it particularly helpful for me when I'm using this like focus method during my work week to knit like the heel of a sock. So I really like that. The flip side of that question is that I actually created a video last fall that was like Christmas or holiday time inspired called Gift Knit With Me, and decided to kind of put a knitting twist on a regular focus timer, because I love gift knitting. I gift knit a lot, and I'm trying actually not to do a whole lot of that this year because I'm so good at knitting for other people. I don't really knit a lot of stuff for myself. But I wanted to use it as a way that people could knit for 30 minutes and then take like a 5-minute stretch break and kind of relax. And I had a lot of fun doing that. So that piece is what I'm calling Pomodoro knitting. I would like to make more videos like that. I actually premiered that video and I was thinking about ways that I could recreate it. So leave me a comment and like let me know how you're feeling about this. But when I premiered that video, there were quite a few people that kind of joined in for some point in the entire 2-hour video. And I still think so fondly of that night. It was so much fun. We literally just like live chatted and knit together all 2 hours long. And so I was thinking about what if I did that again, and like what if I make one like quarterly, and then I could talk about it and like publicize it and like let you know when that's going to be. And then you can kind of mark your calendars and I'll premiere the video and we can kind of like Pomodoro cozy up and knit together, whatever you want for like 2 hours in an evening, and just kind of like premiere and live chat and hang out like a little laid back knit night. But you don't need to be on a Zoom camera or in a membership or whatever. I don't know. We're not going to do all that. That's a lot of work and I don't anyway, we're not going to do all that. But I thought that could be fun. We could kind of hang out. I don't know. Unless you totally hate that idea, or not. But I had a lot of fun and I want to do it again. So anyway, Pomodoro knitting. Okay, next question. Somebody wanted me to talk about how do I find a happy medium with my knitting. I can't really remember what context this was in or if that was it. Oh, I think it can be interpreted in a couple of different ways, but I feel like maybe the intention of the question was to talk about, you know, how do we, there's so many, like there's so much information out there anymore. There's, you know, so many knitting patterns. There's so many yarn dyers. There's so many designers. Like there's so many great creative people out there that I don't know. I feel like sometimes it can get a little bit overwhelming. There's so many projects. If it's not bringing you joy, do you finish it? Like, how do you decide what to knit and when to knit, and if your time is limited? So I don't really know, I guess, a great answer for advice for that. But I guess what I can share is how I'm trying to find a happy medium with my knitting is, I don't know, I want it to be joyful. Like I'm doing this for fun. I'm not doing this because I want it to stress me out. I don't think you probably do that either. And honestly, I don't know. I'm really trying to be intentional in the things that I do in my everyday life, like friendships, personal relationships, even in my work, like what TV I watch. I don't know. I just try to be intentional with my things, and like I've got all this stash I'm trying to knit down this year because I bought it and I want to use it, and I keep overwhelming myself with all of the yarn and all of the patterns and all of the needles and all of the you know what I mean? Like it can be very easy to purchase a lot of stuff that you like and you see it and you want it, you know? And there's nothing wrong with that, but for me, how I'm finding a happy medium is that I often find sometimes a little bit of baggage in the projects that I'm working on, or I'm like making myself feel guilty because, oh, I bought that yarn 2 years ago and I didn't use it yet, and I don't really want to knit with it right now, rather knit with this new one that just came in, but I should use my other one first, or I coulda, shoulda, woulda done, you know what I mean? Like, I'm too in my head about it. And so I'm trying to remove all of that from the table this year and knit myself stuff first of all, because like I finished this hat today and I'm probably gonna wear it like the rest of my week, even though it's not even that cold outside anymore. I mean, it is today. It's like 30 degrees and we have a blizzard, but like in 2 days it's gonna be 60 degrees. You know what I mean? But I want to knit myself stuff, but I also want to knit with the yarn that I really like, and I want to set some goals, but I don't want there to be pressure. And so, I don't know, my 2023 knitting plans video, I talked about things that like I want to make, things that I'm frogging. Like, I'm just trying to get all of the hard stuff out of the way. And if I have any type of baggage or bad feeling or negativity or, I don't know, like dread in a project, I'm not going to work on it. You know, like I use the Pomodoro technique during my work day to help me sneak in stitches, because I have a busy job. You know what I mean? And like, life alone is hard, whether you're like a single kind of lady like me without kids or pets, or you're a parent, or you just, you know what I mean? Like, we all have our own lives and you need to figure out how it works for you. I hope this isn't bad advice, but like, how it works for me is that I'm knitting a project if I like it. I'm going to knit with yarn that I like. I'm going to knit patterns that I like. And I am going to schedule time for my crafting because I know it brings me joy. And I, with my hobbies, like sometimes tend to get overwhelmed and not do anything because there's all these things that I like or that I want to do. And then I just like spend so much time thinking about it that all of a sudden I've done nothing. As silly as that sounds. So, for me, I have a couple of projects that I work on during my work week, or time that I know I can work on it. Like this muscle bra hat, I was knitting pretty mindlessly if I had a Zoom meeting and nobody could see my hands and I actively participate, or, you know, if I had an off-camera meeting, or, you know, if I can knit something in the car, I bring something I can work on in the car. If I know we're going to go hang out at a family member's house and we're going to be hanging out for a while, I bring some knitting to just like work on while I chat. I just find ways, like if I can sit, I can knit, you know? I don't know. So I don't really know if that's an answer to like a happy medium with knitting, but I think you have to make your own happy medium. I think you have to figure out what's important to you. What is worth your time? Are you a process knitter maybe, or are you a product knitter? I am kind of a little bit of both, but if I don't like the process, I'm not going to want to knit it, you know? So, I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question. I feel like that was kind of crappy, but that's how I feel. I schedule time to work on my projects. I have kind of selected a lot of the projects that I'm making, but if I change my mind, I'm not going to be mad at myself for it, you know? Like, I start a project, like, just this week. I thought I was going to do a completely different blanket project, and then I impulsively went and bought all of the patterns to read them, and then I was like, I hate all of these. I don't hate them. They just weren't what I wanted, and then I just decided on this project, and I cast it on today after I finished this hat because I could. You know what I mean? You're the boss of your knitting. You're an adult. You can do whatever the heck you want to do, so you should do it. and in that, find your happy medium. I don't know. That's kind of silly, but that's what I think. Schedule time for the stuff that's important to you. Friendships, knitting, whatever. Schedule the time for it, because if you don't, then you're missing out. That's what I think. Okay. We're going to go out in left field today. Next. And I don't know that I mentioned this here, but I mentioned it on a post on Instagram where some of the questions came from. I think I did. I wanted to be an opera singer at one point in my life. And so someone asked, I think this was actually Professor Pearl. I think Professor Pearl asked, what did I love about singing opera? And when did I know I liked opera? And then somebody else wanted to know if I would ever sing on camera. So it's kind of 3 questions. So I mentioned that I grew up in a small town, and any opportunity to sing, dance, act, perform, theater, anything, I took it whether I liked it or not, because I knew I loved it and I couldn't get enough. And it came to a point in time where I was in high school and I really wanted to take voice lessons. And somewhere, somehow, somebody connected my family with a voice teacher at a college that was not a far drive from my house, but it definitely wasn't a short drive from our house. And she was an opera singer. And in my opinion, classical music and classically trained people, like, that's really like the foundation of, I think classical training is the foundation of good singing. And the techniques that you learn and how to throw your voice and the breath control and all of the aspects of it. I mean, even if you look like back in theater history, like opera started far before theater, you know, kind of, sort of. It's a lot. I could talk about this for days, but I just, honestly, I just knew I wanted to do something and kind of fell into it by accident. And she was classically trained. She used to be an opera singer, and the students that she taught classical singing. And so that's literally it. She was an opera singer, and she taught me classically techniques, and I realized how good it felt and saw how much my voice changed. And just learning from her and like learning the purity of that piece of art form and the technique there, I don't know, it was just very interesting to me, and I felt like I saw the progression and it felt good. I'm actually soprano, which means I can sing really, really high. And so it allowed me to access parts of my voice that I didn't know were there, and I kind of felt like that was impressive for me, and exciting and new. And I just, like, I don't know, it was so fun for me to see like what great lengths I could take my voice to. I don't know, it was just fun. But then I started to learn about it, and then, you know, she taught me some songs in other languages, and I don't know, I just really loved it. And I'm primarily a vocalist, always wanted to be a singer, and I think that's why I loved it so much, because like I'm a singer first, and then I'm an actor, and then I'm a dancer, and like I can do all things kind of well, but I do singing the best. And so I love the classical training, and part of the reason I got an internship at a summer opera company was because I wanted to see, in addition to like the admin side of it, I wanted to see if that type of company was right for me. And it wasn't. I still love opera. I love a good opera. I love going to performances. I just think it's a true art form that I wish more people appreciated. Bit of a music snob. I like pop culture, like popular music, but I'm very, I can enjoy music for what it is, but I'm very partial to the type of artists that I can tell have some sort of, I don't know, understanding of like technique and theory. I think it's really, I don't know if underestimated is the word, underappreciated. I just feel like there are not enough people that understand it and appreciate it that should. I guess that's kind of what I love about it. It's so dramatic too, first of all. Opera's so drama. It's so drama. And everybody's got to sing about how sad and emotional and everything is. It's just so funny. And it's just telling a story through voice, which I also think is important and beautiful. It's like when I graduated from high school, I think my senior quote, I don't know why, I just remember this. My senior quote was, when words and music begins. And I think that's so important, because I think there's just a way that music can explain basic human emotion and feeling more than words could ever. And that's part of the reason why I love the arts and opera and theater so much, is because it really explores that. And even if it's dramatic or silly, it's still the foundation of basic human experience and emotion, and bringing people together to have bigger conversations. And to round out that question, would I ever sing on camera? Sure. Sometimes I feel like I'm very sing-songy in the things that I say and how I like talk and podcast and vlog. Kind of how I am in my everyday life. I'm sing-songing, singing, dancing, skipping, acting, tapping in the grocery store. That's just who I am and how I am. I would sing on camera. I will tell you, if you haven't heard me talk about this before, I live in a townhome right now, and I have direct neighbors on either side of my walls. And the people that live over there are so loud. And I feel like what stops me right now from singing on camera is the fact that my piano and my voice would be so loud that my neighbors would hear. And I feel like that's very inconsiderate. The answer is yes. Probably in the future I will do something. But I don't know if that's going to be like in a podcast, in its own video, 3 minutes, singing a song, playing the piano. I don't know. If you'd want to see that. But I like it. Okay, so the next one is, do I have names picked out for any of my future homestead animals? I think I mentioned this already, but I've been talking for a long time. I really want to have a homestead where I can grow like a lot of food and try to can and like supplement our like groceries basically. There's a book I really want to read. I don't know who it's by, but I hear it a lot in like a lot of the homesteading channels that I follow, that's called A Year Without a Grocery Store. And I think that just that title alone is very interesting. And once I started gardening and like understanding how much more delicious and beautiful it is to grow your own food, it makes me want to grow a bunch of food, and just making things from scratch is so much fun for me. And I don't think you truly realize how good food can actually be for your body and your soul, but also just like delicious, until you make it yourself or you've had something homegrown. And so anyway, I'd like to have a homestead. Zach has always wanted to have bees, and I'm not really vibing with the beekeeper life, but if that's what he wants, like, I'm totally down. So I don't know that we'd really name some bees, but we also talk about having chickens because we love eggs. And Zach has also talked about wanting to have ducks. And I'm scared of ducks because one time when I was like 10, if my sister's watching this, she's gonna die. One time when I was like 10, we were on a family vacation. We were staying at this hotel that was by a pond, and like tourists clearly fed these ducks, so they were like swarming towards us. And my mom was like, "Girls, let me take a picture of you next to all these ducks." And I was like super like, "I hate this, Mom. Don't make me do this." And she's like, "Real quick." If you know my mom, it sounds just like her. Anyway, so we took this picture, and as she was taking this picture, I was wearing sandals, and this duck and its nasty, slimy, disgusting webbed foot literally stepped right on me, and I've been terrified ever since. So that's why I don't want ducks, but they're so cute. Also, I've never had duck eggs, so I don't really know how useful they'll be, but that's just a tangent. I want to have a homestead. We're probably going to have chickens and maybe bees. I don't know how many other animals we'll actually have because I'm not really like trying to be a farmer, but definitely chickens for sure. And no, not really. I don't have any names picked out. We haven't talked about naming them. I will say we really want to get a dog, and we've kind of talked about what we might name it. And I've always wanted to have a pet. I love pets that have human names. So I feel like my future chickens will probably have human names. I don't know. An example of this would be like if you have a dog and you name it Sharon, and then you're at the dog park and your dog's like being bad and it's time to go, and you're like, "Sharon, get over here." Or like you have company come at your house and you're like, oh, this is my dog. And they're like, oh, what's his name? And you're like, oh, that's just Sharon. I don't know. I don't have any names picked out, but I feel like it'd be really funny to have like some human name pets. Make yourself laugh every day and everybody who meets you. No, I don't have any names picked out, but I imagine it'll be something funny like that. And maybe if I'm still doing YouTube at that time, you'll know them. You'll know my chickens. Karen and Sharon and Becky and Carol. I don't know. Somebody asked, what is my favorite musical? Which is Kiss Me, Kate. It's a Cole Porter musical. And I think it's a little less well known. I keep hoping that one of my Trilogy Yarn clubs is going to be Kiss Me, Kate. Like every month I open it up and I'm like, please be Kiss Me, Kate this time. Kiss Me, Kate is a play within a play, and it is based on Shakespeare's The Taming of the Shrew. I've always really loved Shakespeare. I think, you know, he or they or however many people you think Shakespeare is. I know there's a lot of conspiracy theories out there. I just think it's like Old English, very interesting, very fun. I love all the characters, and I love, for me, when it comes to like a musical or a play or even TV shows or books especially, I love when there are like 500 characters and there's 3 million plot lines. Like, give them all to me. I want to see the character development. I want to figure out how they're intertwined. Show me the foreshadowing. Talk about their past. Foreshadow their future. Like, let me see the character development and growth and like all the intertwinings of their relationships and lives. I just really love is like a ton. I just really love a ton of characters. I love analyzing it, dissecting it, and understanding it. And like when you see it one time, then you're seeing more things the second time you see it. Like I'm a big fan of rewatching stuff sometimes to see things you never saw before. You can even appreciate it on like a deeper level. So I love TV series more than movies I will ever, because there's so much character growth and development that happens, and so much storytelling in that. Bringing that back to my favorite musical, yeah, Kiss Me, Kate is Cole Porter, who I love. It's a great variety of music. Sort of biased because it was the first lead role I ever played. I played Lily Vanessa or Catherine Minola in that play, so it had a piece of Shakespeare, which I loved. The music is pretty dynamic, so it was shortly after the time I started taking classical opera voice lessons that I was cast as this role. And there's, you know, some operetta type songs, if you will, but then there's also some like very great like jazzy dance type numbers that are in there. It moves a lot. There's a lot of characters. There's a lot of drama. You're like in the classical. It's like the main characters are like actors in real life, and they're on the set for Taming of the Shrew. And so you see them in their own lives, and the two main characters were previously married and are divorced, and like the secondary characters are like kind of together, but one of them has a gambling problem and signs the main male character's name on an IOU. And these gangsters come after the guy. There's just like all these like wacky, crazy things. So it's like dramatic, it's fun, it's classical, it's kind of over the top at sometimes. It's wildly funny at points. There's just like a lot. There's romance, there's drama. It's great. I really love Kiss Me, Kate. And actually, I will, if I can find the playlist, I will link my favorite version that I have seen of this musical down below if you're interested in watching it. I watched it when I knew I was going to be auditioning for the musical, and I have probably seen it, this version at least 20 times. It's really beautiful. I love the way that it's done. The actors are great, and I actually, at one of my summer internships in college, got to work with one of the main characters in that production, who was like, I can't remember if they were a guest choreographer or a guest director for a show that was happening that summer, but I remember I was like sitting in the box office working, and they walked in, and I was like, gosh, why do they look so familiar? And then I realized who they were, and I ended up striking up a like bold, like 19-year-old me struck a conversation up with them. And told them how much like I admired their work, and we talked about the production and how great it was and how they got in the role. And it was just like a really like, I don't know, crazy moment in my life, but I'll never forget it. And they were so kind and wonderful. I'll just never forget it. So kiss me, Kate, everybody. I love it. And the final question is, what is my favorite thing to knit? And I started to give this a lot of thought, but at the top of my head, I just think it's socks right now. I think maybe it might change in the future. I don't know. You want to know what? Like, socks are probably the thing I've knit the most besides blankets. I love knitting blankets. They just take so stinking long. For where I'm at in my life, I think the thing I like knitting the most, because it's the easiest thing to take along, is socks. I can knit them anywhere and everywhere, and I've knit enough pairs now that I know like my recipe, but I also know recipes for a lot of people around me. I think there's so many things you can do with them. There's a lot of ways to do it easily. You can do it creatively. There's so many great patterns out there. I just think there's so many, like the options are endless, and they're just cute and small and fun, and I like them. Probably socks and blankets. Things I probably knit the most are socks, followed by ear warmers and blankets. Maybe dishcloths too. I don't know. That's like it. I really love good vanilla knitting though. Like good garter stitch. So that's also my favorite thing to knit, a good garter. Or like stockinette in the round. Sign me up. Anything mindless I don't really have to like think about and I can just take with me. Those are my favorite things to knit right now. So that is it. That was my last question, you guys. Oh my gosh. I feel like I've been sitting here for eons talking, but that's it for my Q&A. Thanks for watching. This was my first Q&A ever. So I don't know. I hope you've learned a thing or two about me. I hope you feel a little more welcome and like, you know, maybe who you're watching and what I'm about. And I hope you'll stay. Would you leave me a comment? Let me know if you would like to see some more Pomodoro knitting videos that are like kind of fun and relaxing that would be premiered, where we could get together and like live chat, like kind of have like maybe a knit night. Let me know if you want to see that. And let me know if you would be interested in there being a Ravelry group, if you're on Ravelry, to share oopsies in an oopsie thread, and then I can kind of add that into some of my future episodes and talk about some oopsies that people are working on to make it more of like a community type segment. And in addition to the oopsies, let me know if you would like a thread, since there's a theme going on. I'm seeing a lot of people that are working through their stash. Let me know if you would like a thread to share what things you are making from your stash, and I'd be happy to share those too, to give you some more pattern ideas. Because whether or not you're working through your stash or not, there's a lot of people have stash yarn, and I think it could be fun for us to toss around some ideas, because I'm still looking for inspiration of ways to use those single skeins, ways to use a couple of skeins. I don't know, scrappy projects if you want, whatever, just let me know. I think it'd be fun to share what we're all working on, and whether they're oopsies or stash busting or, I don't know, just things you're excited to share. I'd be happy to set that up and figure that out and do that in the future, but only if you want it. Let me know what you think. So thanks again for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye, guys.